Okay, so one of the things we need to talk about early on is the law of polarity. And you conspiracy buffs need to listen up and take notes, because this is one of the main ways that those in the know are able to control those who are not in the know, through the law of polarity. It's one of the 7 Hermetic principles. And all magic is done through the 7 Hermetic principles. Jachin and Boaz. Most of you have probably seen these before. And what do they mean? Well, you ask Jordan Maxwell and he'll tell you they represent the male phallus. Yeah, I watched the whole video of him. It's 10 minutes long, showing pictures of all these temples and explaining how all the pillars represent the male phallus. You ask others and they might say, well, it represents duality, opposing forces of light and darkness. Well, that's a little closer. But what they really represent is the law of polarity. Now here are the pillars on the Kabbalistic tree of life. Those of you familiar with it will know them by the names of the pillar of mercy and the pillar of severity. Now we're not going to get too in depth with the tree of life at this point, other than to explain the law of polarity, but just know that it's the blueprint for the nature of reality. And you can see that polarity is built right into it. Except for the crown at the top, the pillars support the rest of the tree of life. See, you can't escape duality. It's built right into the very fabric of reality. Up, down, left, right, black, white, in, out, yes, no, male, female, positive, negative, on, off. And you're like, yeah, okay, I get that. Well, these seemingly opposite things are not separate at all. These things are one and the same, just with the opposite polarity. To quote from the Kabbalion, everything is dual, everything has poles, everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled. All truths are but half-truths, truth seekers. See, we're taught to seek one absolute truth. There's one absolute truth. See, now you know why in Star Wars, and I hate to quote from that, but there's so many underlying truths in that saga, which is why it resonated with people to the point where it became a permanent fixture in pop culture. This is why when Ben Kenobi tells Luke Skywalker, well, you're going to find, Luke, that many of the truths that we cling to rely solely on our own point of view. You know, I always thought that was a cop-out when I was younger. But that's the point of polarity. See, what's good for one person may be bad for another person. People are polarized. And you see this most evident in politics. Either on the left or the right. In religion, those Satanists are just as extreme as the fundamental Christians that they think they're rebelling against. They're one and the same. They're just opposite polarity. So how are people controlled through the law of polarity by those in the know? Well, you remember the whole Chick-fil-A fiasco where the founder made a comment about the sanctity of marriage between a man and a woman, which then kicked off a whole shitstorm with the gay community who boycotted Chick-fil-A, causing another reaction to those supporting the statement to rush to there and buy a record number of chicken fillets. See, there was no controversy until he caused controversy. Who started the controversy? Chick-fil-A. Who profited from the controversy? Chick-fil-A. See, they just gotta say something and people react because they're polarized. That's another thing from Star Wars. The Emperor plays both sides. The Dark Magician plays both sides. It doesn't matter what side you're on because both are controlled and played off against each other. See, this is why the media only focuses on issues that they create, issues that divide and polarize the people. They never focus on anything that unifies anybody. No, it's all division and polarization. Right now, it's gun control. See? And on those things, they never shut up about them. Those who are polarized are easily manipulated and controlled. All that's required is to introduce either an opposing force or a like force to move them by repulsion or attraction. And one of the first things you learn in ritual magic is to do the middle pillar ritual. Well, that ritual is designed to balance those forces, to depolarize you so that you're in the middle, so that you just don't automatically react to things. And this is why I told you 2 videos ago during the introduction that you don't have to agree or disagree with the things that I'm saying, as most of you will be apt to feel the need to do so because you're polarized. That's polarization right there. The magician, on the other hand, is depolarized, which makes it far more difficult to control and manipulate him, and makes it easier for him to manipulate that which is polarized. I hope this is making sense to you. And it's not that polarization is a bad thing. See, that line of thought is polarized in of itself. It's in fact a natural thing. Without it, life couldn't exist. You take away the pillar of mercy or the pillar of severity off the tree of life, and what do you have? The whole thing collapses. Think of the pillars as terminals on a battery, a positive and negative. What happens to the flow of electricity if you remove one of those terminals? Well, everything stops. See, this is why you need that equal and opposite force, because without it there can be no movement. And considering the human body is bioelectrical and electromagnetic in nature, you can start to begin to understand how this comes into play. So it's not a bad thing, but it is a principle that is overexploited by those in the know in today's society. You truthers and Alex Jones followers and conspiracy buffs are extremely polarized. For as awake as you think you are very easily controlled. And you're probably sitting there fighting a reaction off of what I just said due to that polarization. See, anything that's us versus them is following that law of polarity. Polarization. It is the framework on the tree of life, as well as the main principal tool in the magician's arsenal. See, the pillars represent not only duality, but the battery terminals for that great electric flow for life. And you need those terminals to complete the circuit. And hopefully, you keep the line grounded. This is why in the middle pillar ritual, when you visualize the Sephiroth of Malkuth, you visualize the sphere partly above your feet and partly in the ground. That's to ground you and to depolarize you. See, grounding is supposed to happen naturally, but you're all running around in rubber-soled shoes all the time. And you're not making that connection with Earth. And then wondering why everybody overreacts to the slightest things like they done lost their minds. I know it's winter here right now, but if you're able to go outside and take off your shoes, stand there, in about 10-15 minutes, you'll feel that energy start to come up one leg, up the body, and then down the other, and out to the ground. And that's a natural grounding. But I needed to establish how this law of polarity works, because this framework of the tree of life, this great electrical circuit, is going to become the basis of your magic. And we'll expand upon that in the next lesson. See you then.
then you're my enemy.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
Provided you've watched the previous lesson on polarity, you may now have a better understanding of the dialogue in that particular scene. It wasn't just the play on George Bush. It was to establish how Anakin had become polarized. Trying to explain these concepts and principles in a way that everyone can understand them within the limited 10-minute time frame that's given to me on YouTube initially is quite difficult. Now, I think I do a fairly decent job, but I do need to back up a bit because I need to emphasize the law of polarity. It really is key to everything else. No matter how experimental, complex, or advanced you think your magic is, it has to fall in line with the 7 Hermetic principles. And if it doesn't, it's not going to work. Everything comes back to the 7 Hermetic principles. The law of polarity being one of the main ones. And I'm not saying that you can't do magic if you're polarized. Certainly you can. But it'll end up being a one-sided type of black versus white magic trapping that you'll end up falling into. There are many practitioners of magic who are polarized. And you see it all the time. But the truly adept magician has depolarized himself. Now there is a flip side to being depolarized, and it has to do with the warning I gave you in the introduction. For those in neutrality have a difficult time relating to those who are polarized. While those who are polarized have difficulty relating to the opposite pole, those in neutrality have difficulty relating to either side, to either pole. Now we can have a far better understanding of those sides and what motivates and drives them, but you'll have a far more difficult time relating to it because you're not in that polarized state yourself. Now, talking to a polarized person a lot of the time is like talking to a 5-year-old. Certainly you can have a conversation with a 5-year-old, but you're not going to really relate to them unless you're around the same age. And you can understand where they're coming from because you've been there before at one point. But relating to them now is quite difficult. Am I alone in thinking that Anakin, during that entire saga, acted like a spoiled little brat child? Well, granted, in the first episode he was a child, but even then he acted more mature and grown up because he wasn't completely polarized yet. Now, you can't remove yourself completely from the poles, those terminals to the great electrical circuit. Otherwise, you die.
Goes off 5 times
Absolute
a day.
neutrality is stagnation, and stagnation is death. So you can't remove yourself completely from the poles, but you can start to bring balance between the poles using the middle pillar ritual and grounding exercises and a host of other means. And this will begin to help depolarize you. Got to bring balance to the force? Yeah, it's in there. And if you don't think that George Lucas is a great magician, who else has manifested more material wealth for the least amount of work? Now, I could draw from various other movies, and in time I may, but Star Wars has the most hermetic principles packed into it than any other, despite its cheesy sci-fi exterior. And plus, most people have seen it. So this is why they're always going on about bringing balance to the Force. That force is within you, and it utilizes the law of polarity. And by balancing the forces between the poles, they combine to create their own unique state and perspective. See, everything begins with the perspective of the mind, the law of mentality, which eventually we'll get to. And since everything begins with the perspective of the mind, if you start with an unbalanced, polarized perspective, then everything that follows will be unbalanced and polarized. I mean, this should make sense to people. If you don't like the things that somebody says or posts in a comment or on Facebook, you should ask yourself why you care. What does that mean to you? What threat is that to you? Who are they to get you all in a twist? Why the need to blurt out opinions to someone with the opposite opinion that isn't going to do very much good anyway because they're just as polarized as you are? And when you understand this law of polarity and you become balanced, it's easier to understand this whole process from the top down. And you're not really against anyone. I mean, at the risk of polarizing some of you even further, I'm not even against the Illuminati. I don't really care for the things that they do, but I can't really say that I'm against them because they adhere to the law of consent and contract. Who am I to interfere with your contracts that you consensually entered into? I have no business interfering with that. Now, you may think that they force things on you, but there's a maxim of law that says, let he who would be deceived be deceived. They're just playing a game for world domination. If you don't understand the rules of the game, well, whose fault is that? And you'll begin to see when we get into the law of consent and contract, when you start playing by the rules, their rules, and start turning them around on them, you'll see what a bratty, spoiled little Anakin child these corporate entities can become. They do not like that at all. But it needs to be done from a balanced position because they want you in conflict. They want you polarized. That's where they excel. See, if you're really so against the Illuminati, the first thing you should do is stop calling them the Illuminati. You're praising them when you say that. It means the enlightened ones. Well, who wouldn't want to be called that? Who do you think came up with that term? Or how about this one? The powers that be. Well, you're just reaffirming their position of power over you when you say that. Perspective of the mind. Everything begins there. The exercise I gave you 2 lessons ago about accepting or rejecting the thoughts that come into your mind plays into the law of consent and contract. And we'll cover that further down the road more extensively. But for now, I'm hoping you can understand the law of polarity a little bit better and see the necessity to strive to become more balanced and not feel this need to react to a differing opinion as if your entire existence is at stake. And this is another reason why silence is so important in magic. It's one of the first things you train in, so you know when to shut up and hold your tongue while you're in the process of depolarizing yourself. Silence is to sound what empty space is to form. The magical sigils that you'll create, the empty space around that sigil is just as important as the drawing of the sigil itself. In fact, that sigil couldn't exist without that empty space there. Well, the same goes for silence and sound, and why silence training is so emphasized at the beginning of learning to do ceremonial magic. It's part of becoming balanced, knowing when to hold your tongue and just let things go. A lot of people would be well served by talking less and listening more. And it's a key skill that one must have in order to be able to perform NLP and the art of persuasion. See, all these things tie into each other on many levels. And hopefully by now, you're able to understand the law of polarity better so that I can help bring you to the next level in the next lesson. See you then.
Those men raped that woman in India to death with an iron rod 4 feet long. You can't ban the iron rods. The guns, the iron rods, Pierce, didn't do it. The tyrants did it. Hitler took the guns. Stalin took the guns. Mao took the guns. Fidel Castro took the guns. Hugo Chavez took the guns. And I'm here to tell you, 1776 will commence again if you try to take our firearms. Doesn't matter how many lemmings you get out there on the street begging for them to have their guns taken. We will not relinquish them. Do you understand? That's why you're going to fail, and the establishment knows no matter how much propaganda, the Republic will rise again when you attempt to take our guns. My family in the Texas Revolution against Santa Anna, my family was at the core on both sides starting that because Santa Anna came to take the guns at Gonzales, Texas. Pierce, don't try what your ancestors did before. Why don't you come to America? I'll take you out shooting. You can become an American and join the Republic.
You finished?
Yes, I am finished.
One of the really cool things about being a magician, at least for me personally, is being able to bear witness to synchronicity. Seemingly random, coincidental events that really aren't random or coincidental at all. Many times you'll have a question that you'll either stumble across the answer later, or it'll just pop into your head and you'll just know the answer. And typically when that happens, within hours or days, you'll come across something that will confirm that answer for you. And this is one aspect of how synchronicity works. It wasn't very long after I had uploaded the video lesson yesterday on polarity that I came across this video of Alex Jones being interviewed by Piers Morgan on gun control, which confirmed everything that I was talking about in that lesson, because I was wondering if I was presenting things in a way that most people who listen to it can understand, and at a pace that people can understand, because there's so much to all of this. Didn't I say that talking to a polarized person is sometimes like talking to a 5-year-old or a spoiled, bratty child?
So the Bush administration was part of a conspiracy
Well,
to
he
murder,
said never let us tolerate
to murder Americans.
I can speak in this accent as well.
Yeah.
The
But is that what you
government,
believe?
Hitler firebombed his own Reichstag, Pierce, to bring in martial law in Germany, April 27th, 1933. Governments have staged terror attacks throughout history or allowed terrorists to attack as a pretext to invade and enslave the populations. I probably own more than 50 firearms. Many of them have increased in value 2, 3, or even 4 times. I sleep very comfortably outside Austin, Texas, knowing that I can defend my family.
And I was also talking about how part of being balanced is knowing when to shut up and listen, and the importance of silence.
You finished?
Yes, I am finished. You will not take my right. You go through background checks to get guns. How about Prozac? You know the number one, oh, that's the big sponsor, isn't it? Or that whole class of drugs.
Let me ask you a question.
Oh, whoa, got to cut that off, don't you?
Why would you
And
not?
so did Mao.
Why would you?
Why is the government arming to the
would
teeth
you-
against us?
Alex, I don't
What
have
about Fast and Furious?
Alex,
Why'd our government ship guns
calm
into
down.
Mexico?
Alex.
To blame the Second Amendment?
Let's have a debate.
A false flag?
Alex.
To blame the Second Amendment?
I get accused.
Why'd they blow up Building 7
Alex,
down the street here in New York?
I get accused when I get you guys on of talking over you, of being rude. I'm trying to be civil.
Now, truthers, did this so-called interview help further your cause, or did it serve to help further polarize the people on the issue? And I had talked about how gun control is their hot topic polarization issue now. That and taxes. See, Saturn's in Scorpio right now, and it's going to be that way for a little over 2 more years. When Saturn was in Libra, it was gay marriage, but you don't hear much about that since Saturn's moved out of Libra. Now, I've seen Alex Jones talk calmly and rationally when being interviewed, but on topics that they want to polarize people, they don't want calm and rational. And you could speak a lot of truth, but body language and the way you conduct yourself is 90% of all communication. Do you think that they don't know that? Honestly? I mean, I can speak a lot of truth, but if I'm acting like a raving lunatic, That's what's going to come across. The truth is going to be negated, and the words you're saying aren't going to matter much. The best way to further polarize those in support of banning guns is to act overly aggressive, hostile, and unbalanced to where they fear that you shouldn't have a gun. I couldn't have been provided a more perfect example of everything that I was talking about in that lesson. So thank you, Alex Jones. Synchronicity also happens as a result of your magic. Now, synchronicity happens for everyone. It's just that the magician is constantly aware of it. It's the way in which your magic is going to manifest. Things typically just don't spontaneously and suddenly appear in front of you. The exception being conjurations, evocations, and some invocation, but that's a whole other topic that we're not going to get into at this time. The way the results of your magic come into your life is through synchronicity. So if I did a ritual for more money, seemingly random coincidental events would happen that would bring me more money. And it would seem like a normal part of life, except for the fact that you know that you did a ritual to get that to happen. The time it takes is usually in threes, either 3 days, 3 weeks, or 3 months. Not always. I mean, I've had things happen in 2 weeks. But usually it happens in threes. And even if you don't practice ritual magic, you should be aware of synchronicity. Because, as I explained earlier in a previous lesson, everyone's doing magic whether they know it or not. You need to look at the things that are coming into your life now. Look back 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months. See if you can trace it back to something you've done or said, or to something someone else has said. Facebook timeline is very good at being able to provide tracking for that kind of thing. So it shall be written, so it shall be done. I've been able to trace things coming into my life back to something someone said on Facebook before. And go back 3 weeks, and there it is, right there. And not all of it positive. There's a lot of people posting a lot of negative things on Facebook. And you may want to limit your time on there after you're aware of all of this. Because part of being a magician is being able to guard the gates of your mind. If you're not controlling your magic, rest assured somebody else will. Once you're aware of synchronicity in the way that these things come into your life, though, you can start to be able to control it. And this is what we mean by being the center of your own universe in magic. When you're in the circle, you're the center of the universe because you're orchestrating it all. Synchronicity now serves you. And I have to say, it's pretty cool when it happens. But synchronicity is what's happening. It's not really the how or why. So we'll get into all that in the next lesson. So see you then.